Welcome. It's wonderful to be able to celebrate the recipients of the 2020 American Culture's Excellence in Teaching Award and the Student Prize. As many will know, at this most important annual prize ceremony, we are normally gathered together in our beautiful Morrison Reading Room and Doe Library. It's the heart of our university and the research archives that have nourished your teaching and research, and it's there that we usually gather. But today we cannot be together physically. I want to make sure to send you my congratulations on your important achievements in this past year. Indeed, at this time in our history, with all the difficulties and challenges that the public health crisis presents, celebrating our individual and collective achievements and the importance of your hard work is essential. Your work underlines the fact that great education provides a broad vision for life. And as your work expertly frames, rarely is that broad vision of life so simple as to provide a roadmap to the answers of the struggles, questions, and possibilities of that life. But there is indeed great strength in a broad vision, a vision which includes the musicians, the artists, the policymakers, the writers, the faith leaders, the organizers, the scientists, all of which reverberates in the work we celebrate today, both as ingredients to your projects and as possible life paths from UC Berkeley. Indeed, your accomplishments and your work provide hope and profound inspiration for the future that a place like Berkeley, its students and faculty hold in changing the world. You have taken one of the most complex curriculum spaces within the university, the American Cultures curriculum, and created visionary works that articulate, inform, and shape the way in which we collectively consider the world. The two Berkeley faculty receiving the American Cultures Excellence in Teaching Award, Kurt Organista from the School of Social Welfare and Seth Lunine from the Geography Department, are being recognized for the immense inspiration that they provide to their students, the creativity with which they meet the challenges and opportunities of teaching within the AC curriculum, and the development of pedagogies which mobilize the energy of our students in service of a broader public. We'll hear from both of them shortly. We will also recognize two students receiving the American Culture Student Prize and two students who are receiving honorable mentions. Fallon Berner is being awarded the AC Student Prize for her research paper, which began its academic life in Professor Brian DeLay's Department of History course, Encounters and Conquests in Indigenous America. Fallon's paper is titled Healing Through Language, Revitalization of the One Dot Confederacy. The second student we are awarding the American Culture Student Prize to is Jed Lee for their work that began in Dr. Khalid Kadir's College of Engineering course, Engineering, Environment, and Society. Jed created an 85-minute documentary, The Richmond Greenway. And finally, I'm pleased to be able to share that Shubha, Jagannatha, and Will Bekker are both being recognized with honorable mentions today. Each student's project demonstrates the excellence found in the hard work and curiosity of our students, matched with sophistication and imaginative research skills. Congratulations to Fallon, Jed, Shubha, and Will, who we will hear from shortly. And again, congratulations to both the recipients of the AC Excellence in Teaching Award and the recipients of the AC Student Prize. Collectively, you demonstrate the incredible results of years of hard work and commitment to issues and questions which matter dearly to our complex society and lives. Thank you, congratulations, and go Bears.
Good evening. In addition to sharing some thoughts with you about receiving this award, I thought I might also share with you my COVID-19 haircut, my COVID-19 mask, a mask that sadly makes my heart heavy when I think about a global pandemic that is just exploiting fault lines of inequality all over the world and in a country that should know better. And particularly the fault line of racial and economic inequality, a fault line that Ian Haney Lopez, one of our wonderful scholars on campus, teaches us are fused together, that racial justice is economic justice and vice versa, and that this necessitates a movement that is a fusion of race and class if we hope to mitigate toxic inequality, and if we hope to save democracy And if we ever hope to not be distracted by all the politics of racial fear and division that is coming to us from our administration. My heart also is heavy for the demonstrations that are happening right now in real time. And I understand those demonstrations. We need to resist and we need to protest police brutality. But not just police brutality, also these structures of inequality in which policing is embedded. It's these kinds of destructive divisions that contribute to such cost and harm that motivate me to teach American cultures. I just had to share some of those heavy things that I know are happening in your own mind and in your own hearts, but I had to share them by way of saying that I'm very gratified to receive this wonderful award from American Cultures. It's a class that I love teaching, and so there's nothing better than getting an award for something that you love doing. And here's what I really, really particularly enjoy about this is when I looked at some of the comments that students made, some of the students who nominated me for this award, some of the students that I've enjoyed interacting with over the last couple of years, they really shared not just their understanding of social justice for everybody, but their own personal connection to it, their own personal growth and transformation. That's what makes all the hard work and thinking that goes into a class like this worth it. So again, thank you very much. I'm so appreciative of receiving this wonderful award.
Thank you all so much for this award. I'm truly honored. I wanted to spend much of my limited time thanking a number of people by name for their guidance and support, because without them, this work wouldn't have been possible. But of course, there are many other names on our minds today in early June, including Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and tragically many, many more. So this is no time for celebration, but certainly a time to reflect and a time for me to convey my gratitude. It's also a time for us to continue to consider and recognize the imperative of American Cultures courses and American Cultures Engaged Scholarship at UC Berkeley. So I can only briefly and generally thank a number of friends and colleagues in academic communities, including, of course, the AC Center, the Geography Department, the Fall Program for Freshmen, the Creative Discovery Program, and the Public Service Center. Through ACES, I've had the privilege to work with some incredible public fellows, including John Elric and Alex Stewart, and I want to give a special thanks to Sophia Fenn for her incredible work last fall. Of course, none of this work would have been possible without our community partners, including the Anti-Eviction Mapping Project, Berkeley Need, People's Park Committee, and within UC Berkeley, the Basic Needs Center, the Student Advocates Office, and Student Legal Services as well. And I want to give a special thanks to the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation, or TNDC, and Ramon Quintero in particular. Ramon made an incredible commitment to the students and to our collaborative work. Students went weekly to the Tenderloin to meet with Ramon, to meet with residents of TNDC housing and other community leaders. We talked and we listened. We developed projects, we conducted research, and we produced knowledge. And crucially, we learned from each other. We built trust from each other. And I don't mean trust simply between the students on the one hand and our partners on the other. Through working in the service of economic justice and social justice, ACES forged a very special and distinctive unity among diverse students, students who didn't look alike, students from different places, students with different academic interests, and students certainly with different political predispositions. Through our ACES work, I've witnessed students move from a general interest to a deep understanding and then to a real compassion, not only for the issues our partners address, but also for each other. Other students were all too familiar with these issues, but through ACES, they found their voice and they got their bearings at UC Berkeley. In our collaborative work, most importantly, today I see students making progress. In piecemeal but pragmatic ways they are clawing back some of the future which has been stolen for them. So while reflecting on this work today, during a truly perilous moment, I feel a sense of hope and of optimism. And for this, I'm grateful and I'm proud of our work. And once again, I thank you all.
Que, Indio, Fallon Yatso, Wendat Indi. My name is Fallon and I am a Wendat descendant. I just completed my bachelor's degree in history and I will be continuing the work of this honors thesis as a history graduate student at the University of Saskatchewan this fall. Language is a vital component of both Indigenous history and culture, yet the invasion of the Americas by settler colonists set in motion a process of theft and suppression of land, culture, and languages, creating historical trauma that has been passed from generation to generation. But language revitalization projects preserve at-risk languages or seek to bring sleeping languages back into everyday use and can be used as a tool to grapple with historical trauma. In recognition of the importance of these projects in Indigenous communities worldwide, the United Nations declared 2019 the International Year of Indigenous Languages, and after the success of that, proceeded to declare an International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which will begin in 2022. Professor DeLay's History 135B course, Encounter and Conquest in Indigenous America, presented an early colonial history of the Americas through the narratives of the Indigenous people who met these Europeans. Historical narratives involving Indigenous people are typically presented through a lens of how it affected Europeans, how it fits into settler history. But Professor DeLay's course delved more into the Indigenous side of the story. There was an entire section on the St. Lawrence River Valley, a history which prominently features my ancestors. In my personal experience, if people know anything about the history of my ancestors, they always call them Huron, when that was an arbitrary exonym made up by the early French settlers. But Professor DeLay and I had good communication throughout the semester, and he used our endonym, Wendat, which made a huge difference to my personal experience in the classroom. I felt that the history of my ancestors was being respected and made visible. It was a surreal and brand new experience for me to sit in a classroom where the word Wendat was used first by the professor and then by my fellow students to refer to my ancestors. It just goes to show the power that words have. Professor DeLay even allowed me to give a First Encounters presentation in the Wendat language to demonstrate the need for hefty skepticism when reading European sources that depict Indigenous people. One of the major goals of my research is to advocate for a better historical representation from an Indigenous perspective, and my methodology aims to accomplish this through oral histories, community relationships, and most importantly, language learning. When I first began this project, it struck me that language requirements that exist in pretty much every other historical field do not exist for Indigenous histories. For example, scholars of French history must have a working knowledge of the French language. Scholars of Russian history must know Russian. But historians depicting Indigenous cultures do not have this same requirement. I see a relationship between this and the fact that many of the Indigenous histories I read come from an outside perspective and don't always represent the community in question very well. It is my belief that approaching history through the lens of language, when coupled with a community-engaged methodology, will bring us to a new era of more ethical and accurate historical narratives, and that this can help counteract historical trauma for future generations. To me, the AC requirement is what makes UC Berkeley. It sets a tone on our campus of respect for diversity and opens a dialogue about race and ethnicity. And my own personal experience as an Indigenous student on this campus, it made me more comfortable in approaching other students about issues of my own identity or theirs. Just knowing that everyone here will have taken at least one of these courses at some point made campus feel a lot less like a hostile environment. And I would argue that more AC courses could result in an even more positive paradigm shift for all UC Berkeley students who are, after all, the leaders of tomorrow. I am honored and excited that my research was chosen this year, so Tiawank, Tijame, thank you so much for shining a spotlight on my research.
In December of 2019, the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge opened up a pedestrian bike path that connects the two cities. To get to the bridge, my friend and I rode our bikes from Berkeley along the Lunine Greenway, then the connecting Richmond Greenway. As we passed through the Richmond Greenway, I told my friend about all the community work that had been done there, that I had learned about from working on this documentary. She was really amazed and commented that she would have never known about it if I didn't tell her. So yes, as the Bay Area continues to suffer from gentrification and new people moving in, you could have a white cyclist move to Richmond and think nothing more than, wow, what a beautiful biking path. Just like that, all the history, the decades of collective community organizing, the struggles and the victories are all passed over and never even known. The spaces we inhabit and move through play such an important role in our day-to-day lives, and yet we could spend months, years, or even decades somewhere without learning anything about where we are. Pre-quarantine, I've seen this especially in Berkeley students who never really stepped outside the maybe 5 by 8 block area that is campus. Often, we and college students everywhere are so preoccupied in our work and classes that we don't think to explore and learn about where we are. So many students come to Berkeley and grind for 4 years, and then they leave without really engaging with the city, the community, and the culture of the place. I had the privilege of being able to learn about this community and their stories through this project. The people of Richmond, California were able to come together and fight for their community that had suffered blow after blow by structural and systematic racism and endured community disinvestment, the war on drugs, and tragic gun violence. This transformation was only possible by the vision, leadership, and labor of BIPOC, Black, Brown, people of color, community members. The people of Richmond have shown me that as a collective, we can come together to revolutionize our built environment. At the time of writing and recording this speech, nationwide Black Lives Matter protests condemning the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, and countless other Black lives taken due to white supremacy and structural racism had made me think back to the history of the American culture's requirement, which was won through years of student protests. In the 1980s, UC Berkeley students stood in solidarity with the South African anti-apartheid movement and successfully pressured the UC Regents to divest $3.1 billion from companies doing business with the apartheid government. I am accepting this award derived from their legacy of student activism and protest. I accept this award with renewed commitment to the current struggles of African American, Native American, and other people of color. It is my hope that the fellow students of UC Berkeley will wake up and stand up for what is right and just in this world. I would like to thank the American Cultures Department for continuing to provide crucial spaces of discussion and learning where pursuing cultural and historical knowledge in projects like mine possible, and the American Cultures Student Prize Award Committee for recognizing my efforts. Thank you, Professor Khalid Kadir, for your continued support in making any of this possible. Thank you to Doria Robinson, our community partner at Urban Tilth, and to all the Richmond community members who share their stories. Your efforts and heart into making your community a better place deserve recognition and remembrance. And finally, thank you to all those watching. I urge you all to seek out the stories of all the spaces you move through and learn from and honor the people who walked before you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shubha. I recently finished my 3rd year studying electrical engineering and computer sciences at UC Berkeley. I'm honored to have been recognized for my project titled 3 Records. This project showcases 3 generations of music, culture, and women in my family, each defined by a vastly different cultural landscape. Each generation is showcased as a record, complete with meaningful visual graphics, a music track, and a reflection. Over 3 generations, my family transitioned from living primarily in India to living primarily in the United States, making each subsequent generation significantly more culturally blended and different from the previous generation. The one string of continuity between the lives of my grandmother, my mother, and myself is our love of music, and in our experience playing the veena, a traditional Indian classical stringed instrument, of which I have 2 right behind me. In this project, I've illustrated the cultural push and pull which ensues from the battle between preserving or staying true to traditional Indian culture and embracing the cultural medley which has come to define my sense of self while growing up in the United States. I'd first like to express my immense gratitude to the American Culture Center for honoring me with this distinction. They are providing a wonderful platform for Berkeley students to not only learn from, but also contribute to the growing knowledge base on the countless ways our vastly different lives manifest as the American experience. I'd like to thank Dr. Schweik and Lucy Siriani, the instructors for English 135 AC, who graciously advised me through this project and who really encouraged us students to pursue unconventionally creative and self-exploratory projects, which personally allowed me to find a deep connection between my own life and the class topic of family separation in the United States. I'd like to thank my mother and grandmother for sharing their history and experiences during the making of this project. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the wonderfully creative and talented members of Laya of Berkeley, whose music I have showcased in this project. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to be brief because I presume we're all sick and tired of webcams at this point. I'd like to thank the AC Center for recognizing my project. That's all very gratifying. I'd like to thank Richard Mizell of the University of Houston, whose book Backwater Blues I really kind of cribbed from pretty seriously, only because it's an excellent book. I'd like to thank Kelly Kinder of the Adobe Fellows program here on campus for help in teaching me to edit audio to whatever degree I'm now able to do it. I'd like to thank Kristen Jordan, my graduate student instructor in 50 AC, for his encouragement. And I would especially like to thank Kenneth Worthy, my instructor in 50 AC. I was nervous in proposing a project that involved Led Zeppelin, right? They're maybe not the most heady of bands. And I remember when I mentioned to Ken that I wanted to do something involving the history of the song When the Levee Breaks. I was sitting in his office hours, and the moment I mentioned the song and my interest in its history, it was originally a blues song from the 1920s, he said, "Oh, you mean this song?" And in maybe 3 clicks, he turns to his laptop, and the song When the Levee Breaks is playing. He must have somehow had it queued up, or maybe it was kismet. That any hesitation I had by that point in the project was gone. Ken was incredibly supportive and generous with his time from this project inception through its making and through the application process, which gets me here, if virtually. Thank you, Ken. That's all I have to say for my COVID bunker /library. Thank you, and stay safe.